Misfits. Midtown. Misfits. Midtown. Misfits. Midtown. Misfits. Midtown. Misfits. Midtown. Misfits. Midtown. Misfits.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing the Places You Should Know series.
Right.
Yes. Last week, we talked about Nazareth. I knew that.
You're testing me.
Yes.
You say it first.
It was a test. I hope that in that blank space, because I'm going to leave it in there. I hope you heard it and you were like, oh, yeah, Nazareth.
We wanted you to answer with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we gave you a second.
Yeah, so we were talking about Nazareth. Yeah. This week, we're talking about Golgotha, which I'm really excited about. I think this is going to be a really good conversation. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into it. So does anyone know what Golgotha means?
I do. But
Yeah.
I also worked on this episode.
Probably
so I feel
not.
like that's a disadvantage to y'all, because if you didn't,
Yeah, in a couple minutes you will.
But you will.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
But yeah, neither did we. I don't think I knew what this was. I think I heard the word once and I was like, I don't know what that means.
I knew, but I think it'd been a while since I really looked into it.
Yeah. Well, no, I know now, but like when I was first walking the walk,
No.
I feel like I may have potentially heard it, but it was never like, oh, I know what that place is. It was just, and also I feel like a lot of people don't use this particular term.
No.
Yeah.
It's not like you read it, but it's not like something that you'll remember, because then they use another word.
Right.
More. And
Yeah.
that's used more.
And this is why you come to the Misfits.
Yeah.
Because they use the weird words that no one else really uses.
And then we bring them to this.
Exactly. Okay, Golgotha. Let's focus. Golgotha is mentioned in all four Gospels as the place where Jesus was crucified. Yeah. And we see this specifically Matthew 27:33, Mark 15:22, Luke 23:33, and John 19, verses 17 through 18. Okay, so Luke, in fact, omits the Aramaic name, quote, Golgotha, and refers to the hill like it's an actual hill, only in the Greek translation as, quote, a place called Skull, right? So, synopsis of that paragraph, Golgotha is a hill.
Yes.
Yes. It is a word in Aramaic. Yes, and Luke refers to it in his particular gospel, but he uses the Greek term that translates to a place called Skull.
Right.
Yes, and we're going to read you the verses. So Matthew 27:33 says, and they went out to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. Mark tells us in 15:22, and they brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. Luke says in 23:33, when they came to a place called the skull, they nailed him to the cross, and the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. Luke with the details. Yeah. And then we see in John 19, verses 17 and 18, carrying the cross by himself, he went to the place called place of the skull. In Hebrew, Golgotha. There they nailed him to the cross. 2 others were crucified with him, one on either side, with Jesus between them. When I read Luke and John, it felt like, when you try to write an essay and you try to use more words to explain the same thing. That's what it felt like.
Like, I'm going to rewrite this, but expand. And
exactly.
use more.
That's what John did. 2 others were crucified with him. One on either side with Jesus.
My essay has to be 1,000 words. Yeah. Yours is only 500, so I'm gonna expand.
I need to say more about it.
I'm just gonna use a few more words.
Exactly. Okay, so to be clear, Golgotha does mean skull in Aramaic, like we said. The place gets its name from the, quote, skull-shaped hill in ancient Jerusalem, where, as we said, Jesus was crucified. Now, many of you might know this hill by its other name, Calvary. That might be way more familiar, right?
Just more commonly used.
Yes. Yeah. And Calvary comes from the Latin word calva, which means bald, because apparently the mountain reminded people of a bald head or a skull, as we already mentioned. Bonus fun fact, the Greek equivalent of this word is the Greek word cranion, which is where the English word cranial is derived from. So we can see the skull theme throughout.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And whatever language you pick.
Word that basically described the place.
Yeah.
In the similar manner.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm sitting here we didn't look up a picture, but I'm sitting here trying to think of a bald head, but also a hill, and I can't see it.
No. Yeah. So I'm curious.
All right. If you're listening to this and you've gotten this far, please go to the Instagram, scroll to the new post.
Yeah. We'll add.
Yes,
add
there'll be a picture.
And if you see it, if it really looks like one, great. If it's just something like local people knew, then
yeah,
you know,
we'll put it on the
add a note.
story and then just vote, please.
Does this look like a skull to you?
Exactly, or the bald head. Okay, so Golgotha and Calvary are the names used to identify the same place, just in different languages.
Right.
Which is good to know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So if you hear it in these different terms, just know it's the same place.
Yeah, they're like interchangeable.
Right.
So question: did we know that they were the same place, just with different names? Did you know that?
I don't think I actually put 2 and 2 together. I figured it were like nearby.
Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I would have never.
Yeah.
Not in my, like, I mean, I haven't been saved that long, but like in my Bible reading time, I would have never put that together unless like someone, like we were doing this episode.
Yeah.
Or someone told me in a sermon, right?
Like it makes me think, like, we live in San Antonio, but like, you know, there's like areas in San Antonio like Castle Hills.
Yeah.
Like that's what it makes me think, like, hey, this is Golgotha, but like he died on Calvary.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's still San Antonio.
Exactly.
But we're in Castle Hills. Okay, it's the same place, but they're different. You
Yeah.
know? That's what it made me think of. And now knowing that, oh no, it's literally the same place.
Yeah, this is the Bible being the Bible, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
one word here, one word here, and it's like, no, it's the same place. I was like,
Yeah.
how was I supposed to know that,
Right.
Lucas?
Yeah. You didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't tell me.
You just use one here and one there. We're supposed to just know.
Exactly.
Well, there's more context, so that's why people do know, but we didn't know.
Exactly. Do more research. But yeah, this is cool, and it helps us understand the Bible way
Yes.
better. And then because we know that Golgotha and Calvary now are a hill and it's the same place, so from this we see that Jesus was crucified at a known place with a specific name.
Right.
And this helps as if we needed it, but it helps the validity of his crucifixion. It helps historians and all people throughout the ages to be able to say like, oh wait, this is a real place
Yeah.
where these actual murders and crucifixions did happen.
Right.
And so yeah, it just adds to the validity of the story.
Right, and there's history to that. So,
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
people,
non-biblical history,
Right.
like texts
Aside
that
from the
talk
Bible,
about it.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So from the time when Jesus was alive, Jerusalem had been through considerable changes. Currently in the place where they think Jesus was crucified, there is now the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This church is identified as a place of both the crucifixion and the tomb of Jesus. For those of you who don't know, because we didn't know, sepulchre means a place of burial or grave. So the church is essentially the Church of the Holy Grave, which now makes a lot more sense to us.
Yeah. I've never I think maybe I've heard this term of the Holy Sepulchre, maybe in like documentaries or something, but it was never something that I'm like, hey, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
contextually you're like, okay, this has to do with Jesus, but I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
when I found this, it's like the Holy Grave. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just
thank you.
makes more sense.
Yes.
Let's keep in mind that the place where Jesus was crucified was a common, quote, killing field for rebels and criminals, criminal hostiles to Roman occupation. Therefore, the area was usually littered with skulls of, quote, condemned criminals, which is kind of another reason they
This
called
adds
it.
to the Golgotha
Yeah.
narrative situation.
Exactly.
That's really, it's kind of,
It's sad,
you know,
but-
the image that you see in your head, it's like, yo, you're like walking around, there's like bones everywhere and
Right,
like dead
right.
bodies and stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like understanding that this was a place where not just Jesus, but a lot of criminals, and it was like the execution place, basically, right?
Yeah.
So it is interesting to note, though, how Jesus was born in a very non-special way, in a very average place, and died in a common way as well. So there was nothing, quote, special about his death, because we know that hundreds, if not thousands of people died in the same way.
It's crazy.
So yeah, it was like he came into the world in a place that was very common, you know, nothing like a big city, well-known, popular, all that stuff like we talked about. And yeah, he also died in the place that was very common for criminals to go die.
Yeah. So it's just I had never put that together, but then like so he was born in a very non-special way.
Yeah.
During a census of all things. It's just
Right,
like
right.
that's not special.
Yeah.
And
if anything,
then
it's like a nuisance.
yeah. And then he dies in a non-special way where many people at that time died in the same way in the same place.
Same place and
and
same
also
way.
he had a very non-special name.
Yeah.
Right? Like Jesus was a very common name.
Yes.
That's why you have to be Jesus of this place.
Right,
Or
right.
or son of this person, because if not, like everybody was named Jesus.
Yeah, because a lot of people had the same name. So
yeah, it's
he had
crazy.
to-
Like all the
identified.
I don't know, mundane things maybe that
Yeah.
that
Like
are
very average
are Jesus
looking.
endured. Yeah, it's crazy.
But I think that just speaks more to like how of course, like his godliness and his time here on earth, because, you know, we hear, especially when he was on earth, how so many people are like, this can't be like the Messiah, because we are expecting this warrior and we're expecting him to be like the super important person. And so for him to have come and just been like, I'm going to do what every average person does, but as God. And I'm going to show you like how God is, and that you can be a normal, like average person. You know, it doesn't have to be something like special as far as like circumstances and all that, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. And also, I never thought about that where you said average looking. I
Yeah.
never thought about that, because the Bible does tell us, like, it tells us that Daniel was handsome, right?
Yeah.
It tells us that, like, what did Daniel's older brother, it's not Absalom, but anyway, Daniel's older brother who Samuel thought was the king, right? Remember, he's like, he was tall and he was all this stuff.
Yeah.
It tells us that Saul was like super tall and super handsome and all this stuff.
And David couldn't fill in his armor.
Exactly.
Because he was
so
small.
he was buff too.
I heard a podcast the other day where they were like, did you know David was short? And he goes, yeah, like the Bible says he was short. And mostly because it talks about other people being tall. And he was a tall guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, that's interesting.
Yeah, so these small details we get, we don't get anything about Jesus.
No.
So I never thought about that, how he's just like, he just looks average.
He's an average looking
He's
guy.
an average dude.
And an average family.
Yeah.
Living in an average town. Like, yeah.
Oh, this is a message of hope if you haven't
exactly,
noticed it. Yeah.
Exactly.
You, person listening to this with your average life and your average face, you have purpose from God. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little teaching moment. Did you know that the Bible linked Golgotha to another biblical site that reveals God's eternal methodical steps towards the cross? Did you know this?
I did not.
Well, I'm about to tell you.
Tell me.
So according to many scholars, Golgotha and the ancient site of Mount Moriah may be the same area. So in other words, they believe that Jesus may have been crucified near Moriah or at its summit, like the place is the same place. So Moriah is the place, if you didn't know, where 2,000 years before Jesus died, our patriarch Abraham had ascended to the mountain, right? So God had given him the promised son and had sent Isaac and him to sacrifice his son. And so when Isaac questioned his father about the sacrifice, Abraham told his son that God would provide the lamb. And so Abraham bound his son. You know, he was the promised heir that God had given him and his wife Sarah. And so as Abraham was doing this, ready to kill Isaac, God stopped him, right? He acknowledged that Abraham's abiding faith in him, and then he gave him a substitution, right? A ram as a substitute sacrifice. And so in the book of Hebrews, it says that Abraham received his son back from the dead. So in verse 19 of chapter 11, it says, Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God was able to bring him back to life again. And in a sense, Abraham did receive his son back from the dead. So Abraham's words about a lamb that God would provide, however, wouldn't come true until thousands of years later. So there's like this parallel.
That's cool.
That,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that a lamb would be provided.
Yeah.
And
then it might have been the same hill.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's cool.
So it's very cool.
Yeah.
And how it could have been, you know, just something to come, you know.
Yeah. And how, I mean, the Bible works together, right? Like,
yeah,
it's all this like beautiful thing that we just see like a smidgy bit of. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was true, right? If it was like the actual hill. Because that was the thing that when we were preparing for the episode and I was looking to see what was there, right? And they created this Church of the Sepulchre, but it's the church that was created in an area that they think might have been this or that, because no one actually knew at that time. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, but this church was built 100 years after Jesus had already died, risen, and ascended.
Okay.
So, you know, at that point, there's a lot of different generations. And it's like, oh, we think it was here, or I found this, and my grandpa said this, or, you know, who knows?
Yeah. And then, I mean, I know like things didn't move as fast as now because obviously we have technology now, but like towns and places change a lot, right? Like people will build things and tear things down and work the land and all these things. So it could have easily been like, hey, we think it's here because there's certain signs, but it could have changed a lot, right? People could have built houses and other things in the area, or like dug wells. I don't know, like all these different things that could happen to change like the composition of the area. And then it's kind of like, well, it looks different than what's written, you know, in history.
Right.
Like, this is what we think it is.
Yeah. The cool thing is about this is that, like we've said before, I don't remember what episode it was, but it just shows us what's important and what isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, if it was important, it would be in the Bible, right? It would have the coordinates, or it would have the landmarks of like, it was close to this and close to this, whatever. But it just shows us that it's not the fact that like the particular geographical location of the hill that he died on. It's just the fact that he did die, and he rose, and
it
he
gives
ascended.
us just enough context for us to know like it exists and it's there, but it doesn't give us like this exact spot is where this hill was at. And so if you go 10 feet, like you're gonna find it or whatever. It's not like that, but it does give you a place so you can have that as like, hey, that place exists and it's real, and there's history about it, and other people wrote about this place as well. Yeah. So we know, that it's a true place.
It's great. It also makes me think of like idolatry, to be honest, because I'm like, man, humans will make a statue or a monument about anything.
Absolutely.
And I do understand that it's about honoring Jesus and what he did, but they chose it to do it in a building and in a church. But it makes me think of just the droves of people that go there and go to that church and, hold it in much higher regard than it should be, because it's just a building.
Right.
But anyway, that's a tangent, but it's what made me think about. We really will look just like, I'm going to put a freaking, like I'm going to put a flag here, and I'm going to do a building here.
Right.
And Nebuchadnezzar's going to do a statue there. And it's just all, it's like, yo, can we just honor it? But like not.
Right. Like there's people that go as far as like bring like the sand and think like the sand is like somehow better
it's
than
like
the
holy sand or
and
something.
it's like, well, it's cool that it's from there. Like I think as a memento, it's kind of cool to remember, hey, I got this from this specific place. But not because I value it more than like other sand.
Right.
Like it's more of a memory, right?
I hold this sand in high regard.
Yeah, like this is holy sand. Like,
it's sand.
It's sand.
Yeah. Same with like holy water.
Yes.
It's like, it's water.
It's
but it's blessed.
But it's,
but it's water.
But it's water.
Yes.
Yeah. It's what you do with it might be different. But
exactly. Like with the oil, right? This is canola. Yes, but I can anoint you with it because I blessed it. And it represents what the Bible represents and all that stuff. But it's not special. It's still canola. And I got it from HEB.
And it cost me $1.
Right. It was on sale.
I had a 2-for-1 coupon.
Oh my goodness.
So but with all that, in Jesus, God provided, as we see, God provided that perfect lamb. Like we see this kind of parallel, and we just know, right, that he did, and that's the place that he did. The blood of Jesus frees those who believe in him, and like with Abraham and Isaac, God the Father received Jesus back to himself when he raised Jesus from the dead on resurrection morning.
So, and what a morning that was.
What a morning,
But that's Golgotha, aka Calvary, aka some hill in Jerusalem, where maybe the Church of the Sepulchre is planted on.
Right.
But I don't know for sure.
No,
I haven't been there. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope that you enjoyed learning about another place that we think you should know.
Yeah.
And this is a fun fact. Tell your friends. Hey, did you know that Golgotha is Calvary? Is the same thing?
Did you know it's the same?
It's just different languages?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you know it means the skull?
Yeah, keep it in the back of your pocket. But we hope that you enjoyed this episode. As always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.